jump in here, but I really thank you guys, and I hope this is entertaining for everybody, and then maybe like educational or informational. Secondly, but hopefully entertaining. So,
should we clap? Thanks, Shane.
Counting on it.
So okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So the project is called Skateable Architecture, Skateable Urbanism. So what is skateboarding? Skateboarding is a form of transportation, amusement. It's a lifestyle, social activity, Olympic sport, exercise, marketing and advertising tool, business, like the skateboard industry, pro skaters and stuff, or a skate shop. It's a photo and video and art subject. It has a lot of ties to fashion, like Vans or Supreme. It's a competitive sport, and there's 85 million skateboarders worldwide. So now we're going to get into the genealogy of skateboarding. And this is part one, developing a lifestyle. So, you know, this is just one person's view of history. It's not all encompassing, but this is just one vision of the West. So we start off here with the Arcadian dream of the West. And, you know, in LA, there's even Arcadia. And some of the ideas were utopia. People were going west, mainly from coming west from maybe Europe or these kind of things for opportunity, freedom, a pastoral lifestyle, and peace in nature. And here we have a painting of the Arcadian or pastoral state from Thomas Cole, 1834, Hudson River School. Arcadia by Thomas Eakins, 1883. This is another one, a part of the Course of Empire series, the Savage State, 1834. And here's one from Kensett of Mount Washington, 1869. These would kind of be considered romantic paintings. But before that, as people were exploring the West, some people found this unexpectedly. So the first glimpse of surfing was of Captain Cook on the HMS Discovery, and it was the first European visit to Hawaii in 1778. He tried to get a boat back or some scuffle, and he ended up being killed by the native Hawaiians. So his first lieutenant took over, and he's actually the one who documented the islanders surfing. And then this is from the lieutenant's journal. It says, "I cannot conclude but that this man enjoyed the most supreme pleasure by allowing himself to be carried away by the sea." And then here's kind of a view of what the islands were like at the time. Again, one person's perspective. This is King Kamehameha receiving the Russian naval expedition, a naval expedition in 1816. And here's an engraving of people surfing, probably one of the best historical engravings by a Frenchman in 1829. Some more early surfing footage. And then we hit this missionary gap where as Hawaii's being settled and the Christian missionaries come to Hawaii, they banned surfing. And there's kind of this missionary gap from 1778 to 1900 when they banned surfing. Later, in 1907, people had been traveling to Hawaii, and the adventure writer Jack London publishes this surfing, a royal sport, where he kind of has this idea that it was this sport for Hawaiian royalty, and he introduced the Western world to the sport of surfing. And this was used to market Hawaii as kind of a vacation thing. Like you could come to Hawaii and try surfing. And in a chance encounter, Henry Huntington sees this guy surfing named George Freeth in 1907. So this is an excerpt from Jack London's A Royal Sport. He describes somebody surfing as a brown mercury. He is a mercury, a brown mercury. His heels are winged, and in them is the swiftness of the sea. So it's kind of this romantic Greek god, but he's a brown person, and he's kind of conquering nature. So meanwhile, on the mainland, people weren't really living at the beach. They were traditionally looking for a fertile valley. Farmland was the most sought after, and there was no action on the beach, really. This is what the beach on the coast of California looked like at the time. Spanish water people would see kind of oily, kind of glistening stuff over on the water when they first explored, and the British also found this. So they knew there was potential for oil there. So pretty quickly, as people started to make their way west, either by ship or with later the Transcontinental Railroad, they set up these kind of oil rig things, which was kind of commonplace at the beach for a long time until it was later banned. And now a lot of the oil is done offshore, but even that's getting banned, most likely rightfully so. So here's some other images of the California coastline. So the idea of inventing the beach. So Henry Huntington, who saw George Freeth in Hawaii. George Freeth is a half Caucasian, half Hawaiian surfer from Hawaii, Oahu. And Henry Huntington is this railroad magnate whose family helped make the Central Pacific Railroad, and then later he was in charge of the Southern Pacific Railroad, which is the last connection point for the Transcontinental Railroad, which laid its last spike in 1869. And basically, Huntington has this interest in developing the coast because he bought up a lot of the cheap land there that people weren't using. And he uses his Pacific Electric Railway, the red car system, to connect downtown Los Angeles to the suburbs at the beach. A lot of this stuff is like before a lot of people had automobiles, which really allows for the suburbs at the beach to be created, because then people could travel there and work in downtown LA. And, you know, Huntington Beach is named after him. And there was other developers there as well that used his railway. One of the famous ones is Abbot Kinney, who had this kind of Italian fantasy that the beach would become some kind of Venice. So he made Venice Beach. And George Freeth was part of the Life-Saving Corps as a volunteer. So he would kind of do surfing demonstrations and hang out at the beach. And he became Redondo Beach's first official lifeguard. This is before a lot of people could even swim. So here's George Freeth at the pier dedication in 1914, Huntington Beach, with some kind of archaic surfboard. Here's Henry Huntington, and here's the logo of the Pacific Electric Railway. And this was one of the most efficient public transportation systems at the time in the whole US. Here's a first map of the Pacific Electric Railway. You can see downtown's here, and it gets people to the beach and all up and down these beaches from Santa Monica to Redondo. Here's another map just kind of showing the extent of the red car system. So basically, Huntington is trying to use George Freeth to market the beach, this kind of California lifestyle where it's recreational, and he wanted to encourage people to actually get in the water. Here's the car going to Redondo. Here's Freeth surfing in 1909. This says he single-handedly rescues 7 from drowning in a local paper. A lot of people didn't know how to swim, so when they are first introducing people to the beach, they used these ropes. Here's him and some of his pupils when he was a lifeguard, teaching kids how to swim. Early 20th century stuff. Venice. So he kind of invented the idea of a lifeguard. Here's some Huntington Beach girls in 1920, the red car. So in 1900, California was home to fewer than 2 million people. But by 1950, the population had reached 10 million. So it got a lot bigger, and everybody's looking for this California dream, which emphasizes this kind of indoor-outdoor lifestyle. You know, the architectural typologies were kind of like the California bungalow and, you know, the indoor and outdoor space. Here's a postcard, Venice. Venice, 1925. People have fully arrived. All the oil stuff is pretty much gone. Some people chilling in Venice Beach. I like kind of like the Moorish architecture there. Early 30s, people are surfing recreationally. Santa Onofre, kind of classic car. Later, Muscle Beach, 1947, the Newport Queens. And then this lifestyle starts to develop with the Ford Woody, the Beach Boys, the Endless Summer. Huntington Beach is Surf City, USA. And here's kind of a development of Hermosa Beach from 1924 or 1900 in the top image, 1924, and then 1962. Nixon with a kind of some Hawaiian garb before he was president at a luau. And then here we are, Los Angeles, 1970. LA smog, 1973. The freeway, the highway, the automobile. And this is the end of the Arcadian dream of the West. People that wanted to come west and have this kind of pastoral playing in nature thing, it's already been built out of the blue and into the black. So limits and drawbacks of surfing is that not everyone can go to the beach and surf. And with the real estate and stuff getting expensive over there, we have the formation of California's coastal elite. We have the commodification of surfing. It's no longer this kind of leisure lifestyle like Aloha, Hawaii. And then we see the birth of sidewalk surfing, and this is exploring a new terrain that formed. One of the key ideas of this presentation is that the Europeans moving west were so impressed with the native Hawaiians because they had mastered their environment or mastered nature to the point where they almost become one with nature. And then with sidewalk surfing, the goal of it, skateboarding, is you're trying to be the master of this concrete environment, which leads us to part 2, exploring the concrete jungle. So the origins of the technology of the skateboard come from roller skating. People would take off the wheels of the roller skates and attach them to wooden planks. This happened in a lot of places, but SoCal was one of the first ones. But the roller skating thing, I like how it was marketed. It was a healthful out-of-door sport enjoyed by university students. It says health for health's sake. And it's skating year-round, not on ice skates, which predate the roller skate. Chicago Roller Skate Company was a big one, and a lot of the first skateboards had these wheels on it. And then the first commercial skateboard sold 50 million by 1965. 64 and 65 with Jan and Dean's Sidewalk Surfing album, which and then shortly after that in 65, Life magazine did an article on skateboarding. And these are just kind of the early images when they took this gal from SoCal and brought her to New York, and then she brought some boards and people were skating them. And the way it's characterized is menace, mayhem, which is a lot different than the roller skating. It's easier to get bloody than fancy, so it's kind of dangerous. And then on the right is a cool early Parisian skateboarder. In Southern California, it had more ties to surfing. You see the sidewalk surfboard, could mail it in, get one. And the wheels were clay wheels. So falling, you could hit a rock and those wheels will just stop. So now we're going to talk about the feedback loop, which is essentially the topography and the technology are speaking to each other. The rider will find the topography that kind of fits the action, and the technology will adapt to that, and vice versa. So they're fine-tuning the equipment to the landscape. Cadillac wheels in 1972. You can go over more rocks and stuff. You can go a little faster and you can ride up things a little better. And this is the part that I'm really excited about, the skate typologies that Corey really helped the framework of this. So we established 5 skate typologies: the hard surface in general, the concrete wave, street style and technical plazas, big stuff, and geometric moments. And this is still part of the genealogy of skateboarding. We're trying to establish the importance of architecture and city design on skateboarding, which is a fundamental necessity. So the hard surface is the first typology. You just need a hard surface with no dirt. This is the most plentiful skateboarding typology and is also the first typology, as we saw in the Life magazine article and in Southern California. The second one is the concrete wave in 3 parts. So 2A is the ditches and schoolyards. These are the origins of transition skateboarding. It's made possible to skate on these by board, truck, and especially wheel technology. And then there's a lot of these ditches and schoolyards and stuff, the asphalt of schoolyards that were built into slopes and canyons hold back the gravel or hold back, some water stuff, and the drainage ditches hold water. So although we're not surfing on waves, there still is this relationship with water, which kind of makes this curved thing or angled thing. It's not orthogonal geometries. And here we have skateboarding in Pacific Palisades in 1964. These guys are some of the first guys to skateboard in Southern California, I'm sure. Skateboarding on the banks of the schools. Pre-Cadillac wheels. So this is dangerous. Here's a Jay Adams, famous skateboarder. Marty Grimes, famous Los Angeles skateboarder, skating at Kenter Canyon Schoolyard in '76. Escondido Reservoir was a famous skate spot for its natural form that holds water. Escondido Reservoir. Here's a ditch, people skating a ditch. Ditches as a typology of skateboarding. And then there's 2B, which are pools. So in 1976 to 77, there was a California drought, and a lot of people know this story where they drained the swimming pools, saved water, and a lot of people have seen Dogtown and Z-Boys. And some of the elements of the pool that are skated as the pool coping, that's the decorative edge of the pool that's grinded. There's pool tile. There's lights you can carve over. There's a death box, which is basically where you put the chlorine thing. So you try to grind on the coping over the death box. And then there's the shallow end stairs that you can carve over. These pools facilitated a lot of the first grinds, the first airs, and the first truly vertical skateboarding. So here's some images of some of the first pools. And this is happening in Southern California, specifically Los Angeles, a lot in Venice, a lot by the beach. Tony Alva. Tony Alva is credited with doing the first frontside air, where he basically became the master of his environment and took it somewhere where he's no longer riding the concrete wave. He's literally defying gravity with the help of the architecture. Then there's skate parks 2C, concrete wave typology. These are made to skate spaces that borrow design features from found typologies. So I don't think without ditches you could have imagined these, or schoolyard banks, or pools. But there's also some new inventions, like things you wouldn't find just in the landscape. And you're trying to, a lot of the designers try to create lines and flow where you can kind of mimic surfing and do a lot of turns and kicks in the same line. And they gave skateboarders a place to practice and advance the art form. Here's the first California skate park, Carlsbad, 1976. kind of looks like a moonscape. I mean, aesthetically, these are kind of interesting in their own right. And they start to develop the tricks in the skate parks. Here's a do-it-yourself skate park under the Burnside Bridge in Portland that was started being made by skateboarders in 1990. And the city allows them to pretty much build whatever they want at this point, although there's a apartment complex that moved in next door that limits the expansion to the north. Here's one of the state-of-the-art parks, Linda Vista in San Diego. Here's Venice Beach Skate Park, which was in the news because during COVID, the people wouldn't stop skating it. So they actually filled it with sand. And this is a cool park because a lot of people go to the beach and they view the skaters. It's really cool. It's a cool experience. I sometimes just watch the skaters or sometimes I skate. Here's a wooden vert ramp that helps, make tricks like this where, it's built for skating so you can develop airs and things like this easier. This is a huge point. This is Alan Gelfand, and he develops the no hands ollie. So his nickname was Ollie. And so basically he's not grabbing the board like Tony Alva to catch the air. He's doing it with no hands. This is very important for later street skating. Which brings us to the third typology, which is street style. So the death of the skate parks due to liability insurance, and they started closing down because the insurance would be so expensive. They couldn't run these privatized skate parks. This is before public parks. And many of the riders didn't have access to the parks. And this kind of leads to people taking to the streets on their skateboards. And you can see here Nadas Kappas utilizing Alan Gelfand's vertical transition ollie and adapting it to the street. And the board technology, the boards became rounder and the tail and nose got more concave. So you can actually perform the maneuver of the ollie and get up on things in the street. So you don't even need a skate park anymore, and it returns back to just the hard surface. So now we're back at the schoolyard using these banks, but with tricks we learned at the parks. So like the ollie. And then if you can grind the pool and you can ollie, you can grind a curb. And you can ollie over fire hydrants and you can grind benches. So this is the development of street skating. And street skaters are basically reclaiming a lot of the times forgotten public space. This is a diagram James Wines made. I have this bar on the bottom, hold on. Oh yeah, the dull public space cliche checklist. So he said, if you're an architect and the building is the main thing and the public space around it is just the afterthought. So he's like, these are all things you might find outside the building and like the landscape design or what have you. And a lot of it's like plop art or the turd in the plaza. And James Wines says that if you have absolutely no imagination, it's a Henry Moore. This is from one of his slideshows. You can find this on YouTube. James Wines is a cool designer. And he calls it the new old relentlessness, where they just kind of place these geometric squares there just for people to sit. But the skaters kind of reimagined what you could do with these and started skateboarding on it. And this has become, Love Park in Philadelphia is a famous spot. Here's Stevie Williams, pro skater. And they kind of reimagined this public space and reimagined it in ways that the original architects never would have thought of. Here's Tyshawn Jones, 2018 Skater of the Year from New York. Here's a famous spot, the Black Hubba in New York City. And then we have big stuff. So the fourth typology, the big stuff, as the ollies get higher, you can jump up on handrails and stuff of this. We're out of the plazas and deeper into just everything else. It's private property or public property, smaller, lighter boards and trucks, skate and destroy mentality. And then is this still sidewalk surfing? Because it's kind of removed from wave riding. Here we have some of the initial handrail skatings. Johnny Kopp from Hawaii did the first handrail, 86. The first 50-50 grind, Nadas. So developing this new language of skateboarding using the architecture in these other ways. And then flipping the board became kind of a common place. So this guy's flipping, and it's called the void because he's traveling from the top of the stairs, flipping the board, catching it on his feet, going over the rail, and then landing at the bottom. Here's another one, Love Park in Philly, the Chaudoir. Some big stuff. Handrails, 5/0 grinds, using the architecture in different ways. Here's Milton Martinez from, I think he's from Argentina, the 2019 Skater of the Year. That flipping the board and landing on the hubba. That's called a hubba. I don't know why. It's like a handrail. I think that's Irvine. El Toro in Orange County, famous handrail set. A lot of skaters go here because it's like the biggest thing. And then my favorite, and I think Corey appreciates this one as well. This is the rare geometric moments. So these are less gnar and more art. So you don't have to be the best skater to hit these. And these are rare situations and encounters that just skating through the city you might find. A lot of it is plop art or fanciful masonry or just architectural expressions and interesting topographies that are sometimes accidental. So things like this, or masonry planter boxes like this, or Jersey barriers on freeways, or just these weird moments that pop up in the city that skaters ride on because of the geometry or just some quality that it has that kind of that facilitates the skateboarding. A lot of weird stuff like this, like I don't know if it's architectural expression, I don't know the purpose. This is obviously a park bench, but they decided to go with this masonry. China banks. This is in Chinatown, San Francisco. You can carve over the benches. The world famous Brooklyn banks in New York. This guy's on, I think that's Matt Hensley overpass in San Diego. I think that's the 15 freeway or the 805 North. This is in France. So these geometric moments that people are just finding and utilizing. And then this is a slide I like. American freedom culture, 1907 to 2020. Masters of their environment. Coming full circle. So skaters learned their thing from the surfers, but later the surfers took the air from the skaters. So part 3, the architectural thesis. So, but why are people skating? It could be many things, but I think fundamentally it's the same as surfing: leisure, lifestyle, aloha. Humans looking for pleasure beyond the 9 to 5, revolution against the everyday. Kind of what Debord was describing in the theory of the derive, or the drift, where you just take this philosophical drift through a city where you're not specifically going anywhere. Freedom, mastering your environment. And on the bottom, Debord describing the derive. It is an unplanned journey through a landscape, usually urban, in which participants drop their everyday relations and let themselves be drawn by the attractions of the terrain and the encounters they find there, which was influenced by Huizinga, Homo Lundens, or playing man, and he suggests that play is primary to and a necessary, though not sufficient, condition of the generation of a culture. And the architectural lessons that we take away from this is that, usually it's form follows function, but in this case, it's the function follows the form. The original typologies were not designed for skateboarding. So the function is determined by the user, not the designer. And then you get these happy accidents. So like the backyard swimming pool, the function follows the form. You can only ride it based on how steep the guy made it on accident. or the handrail. The function follows the form. The use of it is based on what the form is. Like it just so happens to be able to be used by a skateboarder, but that was not the original design intention. So with skateboarding, it kind of throws the form follows function on its head. And here's the problem statement. Cities are largely unskateable. Why? Legality, lacking the design intention, non-specificity in skate parks. They're not talking to each other, the skate parks. They just have everything in them. There's no connectivity between different urban nodes, and there's no big picture thinking. So the macro solution that Corey and I kind of came up with, Skateable Urbanism. This is the big picture solution. These are like skate lanes. You could develop skatable ergonomic standards of construction like ADA, because these are an underrepresented group of commuters with special needs. A city could get a skate score, and it can bring recreation to neighborhoods, less on the iPhone and more health benefits. So maybe there's a skate park department for the city. Maybe there's, instead of a bike lane, maybe there's a third skate lane. You know, a lot of times you see this, no skateboarding. So they're forced into traffic. This is when I lived in Seattle. I used to love biking on this trail, the Burke Gilman Trail. It goes all around Seattle, but maybe there could be some kind of skate trail. Maybe these are the skate lanes. Maybe these are elements within the skate lane. This is the Del Mar Pump Track over here in North County, San Diego. Very popular new skate park that's just kind of for beginners, but very fun. Kids, skateboarders. SDSU now allows the skaters to skate on campus in the bike lane, but it's still not a skate lane. Maybe it's the skate line, like the High Line. Or skate dots. These are really cool. These are defined as skate parks that are under 1,500 square feet, and you don't need a huge park. Sometimes they build these huge parks, which I get it.
Yeah, no. And I've got another.
Yeah, I get it. You're trying to make a big project, but sometimes you just need a skate dot. Here's a cool one that I like in Crown Hill in Seattle. Small, but it's really fun. You don't need a huge space. This was a DIY park built by skaters in Portland. It got torn down because that was the land of some railroad, and they were doing work on the bridge. So they said, okay, you can't have this. But it was a very fun community space. I loved skating this place when I lived in the Northwest. Or maybe some kind of integrated skate plaza, Skateable Urbanism. This is a Rue Léon Cladel in Paris. And this is like a skate park kind of plaza for skating that they integrated into this kind of street in this neighborhood. And it's been effective. I like this one a lot because it has some green and hydrology features. It's kind of like a modern skate park design. I think they made this in maybe 2012. And then here in Linda Vista, they have this rainwater retention. So I think I took this photo earlier and then see how it grew. But I don't really know what this is. It's some kind of rainwater thing. There's like, you can see on the quarter pipe on the bottom left, it flows somewhere. But anyways, it's maybe like I'm not a hydrologist, but it's some kind of green thing. And then maybe you could use this hard surface and curves to kind of work with the infrastructure. So maybe the drainage ditches that people are skating, maybe it's like a triple thing. It's like a ditch for the water, but it's also for growing stuff. And then it's also for enjoyment, recreation, skateboarding, all integrated. This is a famous ditch in Hawaii, Wallows. And here's some more ditches. But so people skate in these, and the purpose of the ditch is to water, but perhaps there could be some kind of, make a ditch throughout the city or something like a canal and you're skating it, and it's moving the water where you want it to move. Then there's the other solution, which is the micro solution. So we went macro, Skateable Urbanism, now Skateable Architecture. And this adds a function to previously frivolous musings. So injecting skate features into the architecture, because, you know, the curved wall, what's the function? It could be skateboarding. And a lot of these are things people send me. I don't know where all these are from. People know I'm into this kind of thing. They'll send me, oh, I saw this thing. It was like a skatable building. I think it could work. So maybe it could work. You know, these are just things people sent me, and they're not meant for skating, but it looks like they are. I don't know what they were meant for. I guess art. It's kind of cool. And here's some notable almost skatable architectures. So this was Stephen Hole's Museum of the Ocean. And it looks like a freaking vert ramp or quarter pipe, but you can't actually use it. So it's kind of like, what's going on here? I think it would have been a lot cooler if you could skate on it, personally, or watch people. But then what about liability, these kind of things? But so this is almost skatable. It's like perfect, but the intention wasn't skating. And then we have the Snoetta Oslo Opera House with these kind of curve or like embankments. And they even had this diagram on the proposal where it was supposed to be meant for skating. But I haven't seen one person skating there. I've been looking for pictures, asking people who have gone, do you see anyone skate there? These were the skatable features that were supposed to be on the architecture. But I don't know if security's chasing them out or what, but it's not really going down. It's just not happening. Maybe it's because your board will just fly into the water, which is probably like freezing. But anyways, cool building. And then this one, we've all seen, it's like the most famous building of Zaha, maybe, I don't know. And it's so cool, but it's almost skatable. It's so close. That's fine. It's really cool. Parametric, but the function, I don't know. And then this was cool. This was a commentary on climate change, the melting. And it's almost skatable. Maybe people even skated this one. But it's still just kind of art. So then here was the part 4, my speculation on the form. Here's like a 3D printed model I did where you'd be skating this vert ramp in the middle, and then it's like a huge mega ramp. You fly over the people in the middle. So this is like surrealist skateboarding. But so to develop the speculation, I found like these proto-architectural forms, things that were almost architectural or hinted at it. Like this is the Ocean Beach skate park in San Diego, where it's kind of California Mission style, almost like a turret. And then here, this is at the San Pedro DIY under the bridge Channel Street, which they've shut down because they didn't have guardrails or handrails. So once they get that drawn up, I think it's in the city, they're reviewing it, it will be skatable again and legal again. And then here in San Luis Obispo, again, hinting at the Mission style, you know, which is kind of just corny because you're just putting a Mission bell of masonry on there and it's like a mission. And then here a doorway where it's like proto-architectural. Another doorway at Orcas Island Skate Park in Washington. So then I did my drift in my neighborhood, City Heights in San Diego. And I found these things which reminded me of the skate features I just mentioned, because a lot of the top kind of looked like it could be a half pipe or something. And this is like the classic San Diego cracker box style. It's kind of Spanish. So I was just drifting around my neighborhood taking these photos. And then I kind of tried to mold the previous skate park stuff with the stuff from my neighborhood. So these were just sketches of things that could be maybe something. And then I came up with these where you could carve over the doorways and then you could skate on the roof, or you could maybe get up to the roof. This one even has oververt. And then what was funny about this is that I was able to print this in 3D printer without the supports under, because coming from top down, the thing's shooting out the filament. But because of the pointed Arab or Gothic arch, whatever you want to call it. I didn't have to use supports because it was able to make that, because it's gradual. On this one, I had to cut it in half and print it in 2 ways because I didn't want to print supports and then have to grab all that out of there. And the funny thing about that is, in history, this Roman arch came before the Gothic arch. But in 3D printing, the Gothic arch is actually easier to pull off than the Roman arch. And then the addendum, education. So this is kind of things on another big picture. It'd be cool if there was skateboarding in schools, like a soccer field or basketball. So you could make a lot of money off this if you got some kind of contract where you put the skate parks in the schools. Maybe you have a whole school district that wants to add these. Here's like, they had a skate school somewhere. And these are kids living in, this is Encinitas YMCA, and they have some after school program where the kids can skate. Here's another one where they had it, after school program. So then maybe there's high school skateboarding where you have, instead of, you know, or additionally, you have golf, football, cheerleading, wrestling, skateboarding. Maybe it's like the high school team, like wrestling, but then you have a skate park on campus and you could have kids that compete, which would give a lot of the skaters structure from this kind of thing. And then here's, you know, just another kind of competitive. This is kind of like, the designer of this looks like kind of like constructivist or Russian. It's kind of corny. It's like just these geometries, but in like red and black and white, but it's kind of funny. And then maybe they could do collegiate skateboarding where, like, you know, there's all these college skateboard teams before they turn pro or something, and they're competing. Because they have it in the Olympics, but the Olympics got postponed because of COVID. So I don't know when they're going to have the skateboarding in the Olympics, but it is in there. And maybe there's $1 million skate park facilities to be designed, and maybe these could be used by students, and maybe the school could use them to attract students to the cool school. So here would be like the stadium of USC, the skate stadium. So here's some more. So here's the final thought. Skateboarding is less than 100 years old and is growing every day. Despite skateboarding's popularity in the West, it is surprisingly still not practiced in the majority of countries on planet Earth. This could be due to lack of spaces, lack of equipment, and or no leisure activities, no time for that if you're just working or something like this. The risk of getting injured could also be a barrier to entry. Everyone should have the opportunity to ride a skateboard, a source of great joy. And it is up to the next generation of architects, designers, and planners to spread skateboarding throughout the world. And I hope that I have demonstrated that you do not need to skateboard or be a skateboarder to create an epic spot. Thank you guys for viewing.